So next up, we have a ForgeBox module of the week, and which one do we have? We're talking about the one that Scott tried to spoil, the CB
Oh yeah.
file storage's snapshot beta by Ortus Solutions. So the CBFS module will enable you to abstract any file system within your ColdBox application. You can configure your disks and represent, different file systems, and they're backed by a storage provider. So I'll explain this to everybody who doesn't know what Luis means when he says this type of stuff. So basically, CB file storage allows you to use one set of code, your application, to talk to different types of storage systems. So when you're local, you might use a folder in your hard drive. But when you deploy it to Docker, that might be pointing at an S3 bucket. And so what you can do is say, hey, CB file, store this file. You don't have to worry about how it gets there. You just say, store it here, and then CB file storage handles, oh, you're using the local drive locally. Let me put that file there. If you do it on the server, it's going to say, oh, you're storing this on S3. Let me put it there. If you want a list of files, it knows how to do that. So it abstracts away the differences. So there's several different providers out of the box, and then we got more coming soon. And so you want to tell us about those?
Yeah. So we've currently got a LocalProvider, which is like you'd guess, a local file system storage provider. We have a MockProvider, so it's a mock storage provider, just kind of logs operations in the LogBox. Coming soon, it will be an S3 provider, which is Amazon S3, Rackspace, DigitalOcean, or Google Cloud Storage Provider.
Yeah, because that's the cool thing about S3 is it's actually a lot of the other providers now support the same interface, so you can just basically point it at you know Amazon S3, or even if you have DigitalOcean, you can send it to DigitalOcean Spaces, and it works pretty well. And then there's other things too. If you want to do like a block volume storage, or if you want to point it at some type of like blob storage system, we could totally build those types of things.
Or you can, as a community members, can contribute if you've got a cool storage use case, and um, it's on ForgeBox.
Yep, and that's the cool thing about this type of setup too. Like, a lot of the older stuff, people get confused about what is a provider, and it sounds really complicated. But basically, it says, hey, a provider for this module needs to do these things. And a lot of the times, like for LogBox providers, I think Alan basically built three on our retreat, because all you have to do is like, hey, if I say log this, you just have to basically use the right function to send it to the right place. And so you just need to translate, oh, I want to store a file on the local file system. What do I use? You can use CF file for that. If you want to get a directory listing, how do you do that? Well, you use the CF directory tag. So like you just have to translate what that generic command is. And so for a lot of these storage things is you follow the interface and you can build your own. It's pretty easy. So don't be scared of that. They're pretty easy, and we want to build up a collection. So if you guys work together and we all build up a community list of them, then we all win. So
Yeah,
that's the goal with this type of setup.
yeah. We were chatting before the hand. I kind of likened it to like Cashbox, right? You got your middleware. Don't really care where your final caching is. You just use this middleware to configure it, and then you're just good to go.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, like Cashbox is a great example. Like locally, I use my RAM for my Cashbox. I don't need a cache server spun up to do it. I can just store it in my RAM, and then when I drop it off at Docker, it's either pointing at Redis or Couchbase or whatever I want to do. Where I can use one of those built-in managed services. So it's those provider setups are great. CB mail services is another thing. Like
oh yeah,
locally I like it because when I don't have to worry about email getting sent out to the real people. Locally, I just tell it, hey, I want you to send CB mail to a folder. And then every time I send a mail, my app sends a mail, basically I get an email HTML file inside my folder. And then in staging, instead of sending it to a log folder that I can't get to, and when I'm doing my CI/CD, it logs it out to somewhere else, so I can actually see that the message was sent, and I can look at it in a different tool. And then if I'm in production, obviously it actually emails. But then even then, I can say, oh, I want to use Mailgun, or I want to use, something else, or CF Mail. Like all those little things, they're just really flexible, really handy. And if you guys change from one storage system to another, for example, you have legacy servers and old school folders, and you're going to go to Docker, you won't have to worry about changing all your code to basically work on S3 now. You just point at a different location. So that's why these type of abstractions are great. So anyway, education rant over. But again, a lot of times we talk about all these cool tools, and you're like, well, why would I want to use them? We try to explain a little bit more about the why today. So anyway, I talked too much.
And I appreciate that. Well, you talking too much, I appreciate it all the time. But just explain the why, because a lot of times I hear these cool tools. I get it, but I don't really get it. And so sometimes,
That was our ForgeBox module of the week, brought to you by Modernize or Die Podcast, CFML News Edition, proudly sponsored by Ortus Solutions. You can see the new episodes every week on cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io or on the Ortus Solutions YouTube channel.